Okay, we are live. I am attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. I'm joined by my two co-hosts, Miss Deidre Payne. Miss Payne, how are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. And Mr. Darren Guy, all the way from Maine. Mr. Guy, how are you this morning?
I'm good. We made it through the floods of the evening and the thunderstorms and everything, so we're here.
Okay. I didn't know that you guys were having such bad weather there.
Yeah, it was big winds, huge thunder, lots of rain, but
Wow.
I made
We're
it
the
through my
opposite
arm.
over here.
And it's whopping 71 degrees today.
Oh, that's a nice temperate temperature,
Yeah.
right?
We're
Yeah.
supposed to
Well,
be
it's
getting
funny.
thunderstorms at the end of this week, I heard.
Well, it's what's funny is everybody can't wait till get out of winter in the snow, but then they get to summer, they're like, "Oh, this is so hot, I can't handle this." So it's a no-win situation up here. It always is. But in the winter,
Have
it's
you
50 degrees. People are wearing
have
tank
you always
tops.
have you always lived in Maine?
I moved here when I was like 12.
Okay.
So yeah, I would say yes.
Where'd you move from?
From Nebraska.
Texas, right? Oh, Nebraska.
No, Nebraska.
Okay.
Yeah, Myrtle Beach, Nebraska, to here.
But you were born in South Carolina, right?
Correct.
From that one
And then
guest last week.
I've tried a million times to leave this state of Maine, and I've always come back. To college in Pittsburgh and Florida, and we've tried to move to Florida, and for some reason you always come back to Maine.
Deidre, are you from Southern California originally?
Yeah, Orange County. I was born in Texas, but my mom was just on a vacation. I've never been back.
See, I've
But
always
no,
wanted
yeah,
to go
Orange
to
County.
Texas.
What city in Orange County do you live in?
Currently Westminster, but I grew up in Cypress. I don't know if you've heard of that city. It's a
Oh yeah.
smaller city. But yeah, I'm
Yeah,
in Westminster.
Now Westminster is right next to Huntington Beach, isn't it?
Yes. Uh-huh.
I have a good friend who is he's my age, but when he was younger, he was a surfing champ.
Yeah, they're
down
gonna
in-
have the US or the US Surfing Opens. What is it called? I think like in the next week or two. I think here in Huntington.
Yeah, and there's a couple statutes of him at Huntington
Oh.
Beach. I mean, that's how good he was.
Oh,
He
I
was
think you've brought up his name before on one of your shows because somebody else said that they were a surfer, and you're like, well, maybe you know my friend.
yeah.
What's his name? I'm just.
I don't want to mention his name.
Oh, okay. I was gonna see if I could find his statue.
It's the big
Take a
concrete
picture
guy in
of
the
it.
middle of the beach.
He will be the big blonde white guy. The other two guys are Samoan.
Isn't
Oh,
that
okay.
everybody in California?
What's that?
Everybody what?
I said, isn't that everybody in California? Big blonde-haired guy, blonde hair, and Samoans.
No, actually, where I even live right now in Westminster, I'm feeling like the minority lately.
Well,
There's hardly any white people left, I feel like.
Well, yeah, you're not a blonde-haired man.
No, you
No,
are,
but I mean, I thought you were.
well, you are a minority in Westminster because isn't it mainly Vietnamese?
Asian. Uh-huh.
Yeah. After the Vietnam War, a lot of Vietnamese migrated to Westminster, and they have a huge.
They even have like little Saigon, I think, over there,
Right.
like in Westminster area, off of Magnolia. I think.
Right. I think
No,
it's
not really.
outside of Vietnam. I think it's the biggest like little Saigon in the world.
No, yeah, really, it is. Like if you go down that street, Magnolia, I mean, they have the big red, like looking temple. Like, I mean, you really feel like you're kind of like
theater?
in. Yeah, like, but more extreme. Like,
Really?
I've never been to Vietnam, but I can just imagine that the feeling that I get when I go down that street is kind of like literally you feel like you're in a
little Vietnam.
country. Yeah.
So, folks, we had a guest scheduled this morning who couldn't wait to be on the show, and he is AWOL. I called his number, and it went straight to voicemail, so he might be having some, work or personal challenges. And so we're going to still go on with the show and do some question and answer if Miss Payne and Mr. Guai can keep me busy.
Yeah, you know what?
I definitely can.
Yeah, I'm
What'd
sure
you
you
say?
could get pounded for hours. Oh no, nothing. I'm sure that we could pound you with questions for hours.
Okay, well,
I'm
that's
sure there's
good
some people
because,
watching. Yeah, I'm sure there's people watching too that oh hey, and then I made a speech. I wrote a speech for my captain's speech that I want
Yeah, I was
to
going to
I
ask
want
you
you
too
to hear.
about that. Like, what exactly do you want the captains to be like doing right now as far as their role?
well, we're going to have a Zoom meeting of all people that are going to be captains. And I'm going to lay out the formula for them to uh, get captains for the cities. And then it's
Mm.
going to go down to get captains for the communities in the city. You know, some cities are huge, like Los Angeles, and there's so many communities within Los Angeles. Um, you know, where and there's CPS offices all throughout the county, you know, servicing these communities or terrorizing these communities, however you want to put it.
Yeah,
But you
Yeah,
know,
really.
so we're going to go from state to
The
county
county,
to
the city,
cities, and then
and then community.
communities within those communities, and we're going to try to organize people to vote in, you know, elections, the general elections, to make changes both at the state and the federal level. When it comes together, because everyone, it's going to be so compartmentalized, it's going to be a beautiful thing, with the number of votes that we're going to be able to put out there on election day, for both city, county, state, and federal elections. Okay, and you know, our agenda is to have people that are family friendly and who want to keep families together and make laws to keep families together, and change current CPS laws all over the country. You know, it's a shame. I get so many of these calls. I get so many calls from relatives who can't get the child. It's just incredible. I got a call the other day. Um, the grandmother has no criminal record, and they just took this child. He's 4 or 5 years old. They put him in a foster home. The foster mother went out on a date, apparently, left the kid, two foster kids there with her teenage daughter. And the
Mm.
child was crying and upset so much from being away from the family, that the teenage daughter, out of desperation, called the parents.
The
Now,
biological parent?
yeah. Now, don't forget that the social worker didn't arrange a visit like she's supposed to. But the teenage daughter was so concerned that she called the biological parents and let them talk to the child to try to calm the child down.
Oh my
Apparently,
God.
apparently this child is going crazy because he's not with his family. Now, here's something that you should know. That will never be reported to the judge. As far as the judge is concerned, everything's great with the kid in foster care.
yep.
No problem. Now, in this particular case, which is also interesting, it's a DV case where allegedly the mom is the perpetrator and the father is the victim. Okay.
Mm.
They are currently not living together. Do you think that the social worker ever thought about giving the child back to the father? No.
Mm.
And they won't give the child to the father's mother.
Wow. And he's the non-offending parent.
See, they
Yeah,
did that
wow.
same thing. They did that same thing with us. They wouldn't. It was ridiculous.
So
Mine too, meaning,
you have to
go ahead,
ask
sorry.
yourself, you know, why is this happening?
Because of money.
Why would that be happening? You know,
The
and
ironic thing in my situation is the paternal grandmother for my youngest that, you know, we lost our rights to and is getting adopted. After all was said and done, because she went through such a long process of getting, you know, like RFA approved or, you know, all the different steps that she had to do or foster classes she had to take, you know, when our case finally ended and obviously she didn't get placement of our son, she now has 3 foster kids of her own now because she
Oh,
went through
nice.
this whole thing and, you know, basically found out about all of it and still wanted to help in some kind of way. But to think at the end of the day, she lost and we lost my child / her grandson, but now is technically having, 3 foster children in her home, meaning why wasn't she good enough to have her own biological grandson
That
from day
happens a
one,
lot. That happens a lot. I can't tell you how many people have called and told me that story. And just what what's going on? Why do that? Sometimes, these cases aren't supposed to be punitive, meaning you allegedly committed child abuse or a risk of doing child abuse, but we're not supposed to be punishing you. This kid that's in foster care where the teenage daughter called the parents is going to be marked and scarred emotionally and psychologically for life.
But yet they're supposed to be keeping this child in the best interest, They're doing worse.
Yeah. Best interest is defined by whoever is defining it.
Yeah.
The judge. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that. I read that.
You and the judge and the social worker all have different definitions. But
whatever benefits themselves.
The law is something very interesting. The definition of best interests is in the eyes and the mind of the beholder. You would think that we would have a standard definition and formula. You would think that, but we don't. We purposely don't. To give judges and social workers the latitude to determine best interest in every case, because honestly, it's not the same in every case, right?
So this whole thing is a smoke and mirrors, horse and pony.
Well, that's what the law is, my friend.
I mean, you have imminent danger, which there's no standard definition. You got a preponderance amount of evidence. You have hearsay, and now you have the judge's best interest. So all of this stuff is just whatever anybody wants it to be.
Yeah, in that particular case. Now, as a lawyer, I can make an argument for you why it should be like that. I can make an argument why it shouldn't, but that's what lawyers do. How many angels dance on the head of a pin? We can argue that too.
I think the sad thing, though, at the end of the day is, like all of us naive parents in the beginning think what CPS is and should be. And then when you really find out what they kind of are at the end of the day, they do nothing of what the definition of what we think that they're supposed to be doing at all, basically. I mean, it's just like you said, it's all about what they want it to be. And obviously the money part of it all, but it's not really for anything about the child, is what I feel like.
Right.
Look at this foster child now that's in this traumatizing situation,
Right. So that poor kid that we're talking about, what's going to happen to him? What's going to happen to him next week when they have the court hearing? What's going to happen to him even if he is returned to a relative or the father? What's going to happen to him? Is anybody ever going to get him counseling to try to explain all of this? Probably
or even
not.
the poor father now that is even more traumatized to know how bad his child was nonstop crying to where this teenager felt like she needed to call him, it's like to know your child is just in that much hurt emotionally,
So late last night, I happened to go to bed a little early yesterday. He called me. The father called me. He was distraught that his son was going through this.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this as a parent? Now, I know both of you can, right? Because you've been there. But think about all the millions of people and parents that have kids that have never been there. Can you imagine this happening to your kid? And the statements, he was making to me was like, I thought CPS was supposed to be protecting kids.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. They're doing nothing with what you think they're supposed to.
Right.
Yeah.
And here's the sad part, as I said earlier, the judge, I will bet $1 that the judge will never find out about this incident.
Nope.
Even
you don't think the biological father will make such a point to make sure the judge knows?
He will, but assuming that he didn't, and the social worker finds out, the social worker will never tell the judge.
Yeah.
You know why? One of the
You would have to
things,
almost remove that child from that placement, I would think.
no, there's nothing wrong with the placement. The problem
Well,
is
you
the
think
kid
that's
wasn't
okay,
going back.
though?
The kid just misses his
No,
parents.
Right.
no,
Kid
but do
just
you think
wants
it's
his
okay
parents
that the
back,
teenager did that?
It was great that the teenager did that because at least the kid got to talk to the parents or father or whatever.
I would have just seen it from the devil's advocate side, meaning like where did she have the right to make that decision to allow the biological parent to have that certain communication with his child at that particular time and not being like supervised, or you know what I'm trying to say, that kind of
Right.
avenue is what I mean.
But apparently the teenager was desperate. The kid was going literally crazy, wanting his parent.
I mean, there's
That's
just
what I
the
mean. I
point
would
of
see
just
them
being
then
a good
taking that
person and a
child
human
out of
being
that
at the end of the day.
placement because the foster parents obviously weren't able to be there for the teenage
Right.
daughter to,
The foster mom wasn't even there.
exactly, that's what I mean. Yeah.
And life goes on. People need a babysitter. You know, like that's just life. Those things happen. You know, like it's not, you know, it's nobody's fault. The
But
fault
then
is that
call the
this poor
biological
child
parents,
the
that's
fault
so
of
small.
everything is
Yeah.
that this poor child is sitting at someone else's house and doesn't want to be there. That's what the fault is. You know,
And the father couldn't go pick him up. That's just so heartbreaking. Gosh.
Right. How do you explain that to your 5-year-old?
Yeah. That he can't just come and get him. Ugh.
And they don't allow you. Now, here's the other thing. And I know this for a fact because they did this in our case. You're not allowed to speak to your child about what's going on. So you're not allowed to tell them, hey, this caseworker took you. They took you from us because they think that we have a problem, blah, 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 blah. You know, that's asinine because everything that you read tells you that you should be telling the truth to the child, letting the child know the best that you can about what is going on with the situation. But we were scolded. If we mentioned anything about the caseworker removing her from us or anything of those sorts, we were scolded, we were penalized. You know, we were you can't tell them this. You can't let her know this stuff. This is not it. You know, it was just asinine. And the fact that they can give you an order that says 1 year from now, so you are a person of no decree whatsoever of being a counselor or anything, but you're going to have me sign a document that says this should take 1 year. You know, like you just signed, you know what I mean? Like, obviously we're doing this for the amount of time of the funding that goes through the thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's why.
That's exactly right.
That's why the time clock,
Yeah.
literally my youngest attorney said the time clock has run out. We are out of time.
So many people call me and they say, hey, Davis, the social worker says it will be at least 6 months before I can get my child back. Why is that? And I explained to them that that's not the law. All right. Do you know that 50% of the people I tell that to don't believe me? They believe the social worker. Social worker said 6 months. I can't get to 6 months, so I might as well not do anything. Now, here's the psychology of this legal battle. Right as the case is starting, social worker says it's going to be 6 months. Okay? So you don't fight at the detention hearing, at the jurisdictional hearing, and the dispositional hearing. You don't fight. You've now accepted that it will be 6 months. Okay? And you know, and as part of that, you don't have a trial. So you just accept it and say, okay, no contest. I'll see you in 6 months, Judge. I hopefully can get my kids back then. Then 6 months comes around, and the new report says, we're going to go to the 12-month.
Not enough progress. Yeah.
Right. We're going to go to 12-month date before you give your kids. And then people, those 50% that don't believe me, they call me up and say, this doesn't sound right. No, it's not. I told you from the beginning. But here's the problem. Now you've come to me with a black mark on your forehead. And the black mark is those child abuse allegations are now true because you didn't fight them. But they weren't true, Mr. Davis, blah, 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 blah. I told you should have a trial. But Mr. Davis, if I have a trial and I win, it doesn't matter because I don't get my kids back for 6 months.
That's why there was a time I wanted to stand outside Orange County Court, seriously, almost just like a stupid mother with even like flyers of you or your information and like tell these parents, like basically in the beginning, because I feel like how else do parents like us that don't find out about you until too late in the game? You know, it's almost like
So
you just want to let these poor parents know what they need to do in that very beginning of
But
it all, because
half of them are not going to believe you. And that's the sad
true.
part, because they've already made
well, and then
friends.
here's
They
the other
think their
problem.
friend is the social worker.
Yeah, because they
Right.
think that
Because
they're
here's the
actually
other
there to help
problem
them.
is that they take that 72-hour hearing, and if you get a court-appointed attorney, or if you're even lucky enough to have an attorney at the 72-hour hearing, where some people won't even have them if they've just removed their kids, the attorneys will be like, hey, look, we're not going to do this. We're not going to go, because they can use this against you down the line. Like, that's what was, so they said, let's not show up. We're going to waive our right to a 72-hour hearing, which I was irate about. I'm like, no, we're going to get our kid back now. There's no reason that she should be gone, blah, blah, blah. But no. We waive it. And guess what? Up here, they call it Jeopardy hearings and such. So when we get to Jeopardy hearing, what's the first thing that these people say when we get there?
Is that you waived your
The parents
72?
waive their right for the 72-hour hearing. They don't even care. And
Yeah.
this is,
Wow.
and you know what our attorneys did? Nada. They
Nothing.
didn't say one iota of a word. And Mary and I were sitting there going, are you kidding? But you know how many
My
people this
attorney
happened
told me
to?
every court date that we didn't need to come because of COVID. Oh, there's no really reason for you to show up. We'll just call you after our court date. Little did we know that at our TPR hearing, something was mentioned along the lines about, because the foster parents had now been granted the de facto parent status, so they were allowed inside the courtroom now. But something was mentioned along the lines of letting us know that basically these foster parents were present every single court date, but yet our attorneys were telling us, oh, no need to go. Don't you think that would have been something that they would have kind of told us? Like, well, the foster parents are making an appearance. So, maybe you do want to come just because, how does that look to the judge? No, we didn't even know that until the TPR hearing. But yet they're basically telling us, don't come. You don't need to come. It's COVID. They don't really suggest it, but
Here's the thing, Deirdre. When somebody tells you something, you have to think, what's their agenda? What's their agenda? Now, I've been a court-appointed attorney decades ago, right? What do you think the agenda, and this is not all court-appointed attorneys. Okay, I don't have the same opinion that Ms. G has. I've met some outstanding court-appointed attorneys. But in general, what do you think the court-appointed attorney's agenda is?
to just push you along,
Why?
like because they're
Why?
not going to make any more money if they do any more work for you.
Really?
They're just there to show up for their paycheck, and but they also, like we all know, work for the state. So why do they really want to go against these people?
And here's the thing. You already have a low expectation of having a court-appointed attorney. So if you have a low expectation,
The bars.
do you
The
think
bar set.
do you think they're going to go? A person is going to go above that bar? That's the interesting thing about the social dynamic of these cases. Okay, so I told you guys on the show one time that there was appellate case in California. And I don't know the exact language that it used, but it basically said is you're entitled to a court-appointed attorney if you can't afford one. You're not entitled to Johnny Cochran.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
Now,
always a diamond in the rough, though.
yeah, there are. But how does that make you feel? You're involved in
as
the
that
most
attorney,
important.
right? Right.
You're
As the
involved in
attorney
the most.
himself, you just feel like a piece of garbage, right? You'd be like, why am I going to try? These people
So
are already looking at me as a schmuck.
You're
absolutely right.
You're now involved in the most important case you'll ever be involved in, ever. Your kids, getting your children back. And now you're not entitled to a court-appointed attorney who's the best attorney in the world. You're not entitled to Johnny Cochran. We're going to give you a warm body with a license and cross our fingers, hope things go right.
I don't even think they're warm-bodied anymore. They're so cold-hearted. I have a specific question to my case, if that's okay to ask.
Yeah.
So I mentioned to you before that my two older boys are with my mom, and she's the legal guardian. Well, she had bought a house in Vegas when my case first opened, and her move has been put on hold because of the case. Well, now it's getting close to that time where my kids just literally told me yesterday that my mom let them know that, she has now put in her retirement at her job and like a date in mind, meaning this date is like, I'm talking less than 2 months away. So I mentioned to you once before about, what it entails to go and terminate the legal guardianship or try to. And obviously you said, don't go alone. You need a lawyer. But with it being time case sensitive in that matter, let's just say if I had an attorney, how fast does something like that happen if they filed the correct paperwork to try and do this? Is it something that happens quite quickly, or could it be a long process? Like if I wanted to try and prevent her from taking the kids and moving them to Vegas in a couple months.
It could be a long process. If she's planning on moving in a couple months, you and your attorney better be filing something now, filing a 388 to terminate the guardianship. Now, here's the interesting thing. This used to be the law in California, and I think it still is. Guardians who are granted guardianship out in the juvenile dependency court can't just up and leave.
They already gave her permission to move to Vegas because that was her biggest thing.
Who did?
The judge.
Oh, so
because remember I told you she had bought the house when the case first opened, so she's been chomping at the bit.
So yours. Well, that's interesting. I've never heard of that one, but it makes sense. So before she became the guardian, she told the judge, "I'm not going to do it unless you let me move to Vegas," and the judge said, "Okay." Well, I mean. Yeah. That's what she needs. She needs the judge's blessing to move to Vegas. Now, you can file something to stop the move, or you can file something to get the kids back. How old are they?
Well, my oldest will be 11 next month, and my middle just turned 9, so 11 and 9.
Okay.
My youngest, is what we lost our rights to because of.
Do you still have visitation with the 2 boys?
Remember, I don't know if you remember because you hear so many cases. I basically have them every weekend, all weekend, and almost any day that they're not in. Like right now, it's summer time, so they've been in.
I surely don't remember. You have unmonitored weekend visits?
Well, this is the thing. I was granted.
Or no? Yes or no?
My mom's letting me have them unsupervised.
Okay, so that basis in and of itself is evidentiary basis to terminate the guardianship and return the kids.
So we shouldn't talk about
that.
Because
I think you told me that, but remember what I thought I was afraid of posing that is what if they then turn it around on my mom in a way and say, well, actually, no, we're not going to give them back to the parents, but we're going to take them from now the grandma because she wasn't doing the supervised visits like she was supposed to.
I think the guardian has the discretion
to liberalize,
to liberalize visitation. I think that's the law. What they say in CPS cases is, no, she doesn't have that discretion without the social worker being involved. But I don't think that's the law. That's just what CPS wants.
The exit paper or the exit orders is what we were told by my attorney and my husband is that we were granted minimum of 6 hours per week of supervised, but yet if she wanted us to have a more, or in my eyes, unsupervised, and then up to her, meaning ever since our case closed last July, a year ago now, like I said, I basically had them anytime that they're not in school.
Under that order, if that's what the order says, your mother can definitely has the discretion to liberalize and increase your visits. And if she has, that is the basis for you to get the kids back, period, end of story. I would file something.
And could I do that without an attorney, or I still need an attorney?
Well, you can file anything you want with or without an attorney. Here's the problem. At some point, if you get far enough in the process, you're going to have a hearing and a trial. Okay? Mm-hmm. You're probably going to want an attorney for that. But you're going to be stuck with what you filed. And either you filed it the right way, you didn't leave anything out, you made all the arguments that you should have been, you brought up all the arguments that you should have. If you do that perfectly, your attorney that you get later is in good shape. If you don't do it perfectly, your attorney's going to be kind of handcuffed at the trial.
Should I believe when my attorney, my CPS attorney, court-appointed attorney for, my case, told me literally when I asked him about what if I needed to do to terminate the legal guardianship, he said, go ahead and wait out a year, which this month literally has been a year now, and contact me then, and I will help you. Do I really believe that he could still help me?
I don't know. You should try.
Oh, okay.
I
But
don't
I'm not
know.
entitled to another court-appointed attorney in this situation because
Not at
obviously
this
it'd be
point.
something that I'm fine with. Yeah.
Not at this point, because technically your case is closed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could file something and request to be reappointed, and the judge may or may not do that. But your case is closed. And the fact that he said he will help you, that's that's good, great on his part.
I mean, I didn't know if I'd really to believe him. I mean, he was not.
Well,
He wasn't bad like all the ones we always hear, but he wasn't also like the diamond in the rough either. So I mean,
I don't know if he's telling you the truth or not. I mean, you can try. You can call him up and say, "Hey,
yeah.
ready to file that 388 to terminate the guardianship. You going to take care of that for me?"
But did you also say that they would take my mom's word as kind of like held high as far as her what am I trying to say? Like the judge is obviously going to ask my mom what her feeling is about, like, let's say having the kids come back home, and whatever she says, is the judge going to take that high, even though, let's say I have the evidence to prove that I basically had them all this time unsupervised?
Hey, Darren, I want you to listen to this answer, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to think about this. She's asked a very good question. She's asking the wrong question. It's a good question. It's just the wrong question. Let me tell you why. A lot of people come into these cases and tell me, what if this, what if that, what if this? And they get in their minds all this what if. And it stops them from doing what they need to do. Okay? So I tell people this all the time, and a lot of people get uncomfortable with this advice. Look, I'm representing you. Do not tell me about the father. Do not tell me about the kids. Do not tell me about the social worker. We have our own case, and I know what we have to do to prove it. Now, if I learn information, I'll adjust as we go on. But if you start worrying about what if, you're never going to do what you have to do. Classic example, Deidre. She got a lot of what ifs. Okay. I told Deidre, file the damn 388 petition. File it. And if you were confused last time, I'm telling you now, file it. Get that attorney on board and file it. Get a hearing. That's the first step. One day at a time. First step. May something come up that might screw you up later? Yeah, of course. You deal with it then. But if you don't file anything, one thing's for sure. Your kids are moving and you'll never get the kids back. Okay?
Right.
And then if they do move to Vegas, and if I still try to terminate the guardianship, I would have to go through a court in Vegas then, right?
Well, that's an interesting question. There are some people that say you have to go through Nevada. I'm of the belief you still have to go through California because it's a California court order. But if you wait till they move, it's going to be harder for you.
Yes, I know.
A lot harder. So I don't know why you don't file it tomorrow.
Well, that's what I'm trying to ask you these questions for.
But Darren, you see this, the thing I'm pointing out to you is this. I can tell you what to do. That doesn't mean you're going to do it.
Right.
There are a lot of reasons why people don't take my advice. Because they haven't told me the whole story, because they don't believe me, because they have another agenda in mind that they don't want to mention to me.
Right.
That happens a lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure they set up the perfect scenario to make them look good or not sound as bad, but they're not telling me the right stuff.
Right.
right? So
Would I still be filing it like just for me and the mother, even though me and my husband have never separated and we're still living together and we've always lived together, but yet we were treated as two different cases
is he
throughout the whole
there?
thing?
Is he there on the weekend visits?
Yeah.
Oh, then he should file his own too. He should talk
We
to
should
his
both file one?
Yeah, you should both talk to your attorneys and file. Now, Darren, I will bet $1.
No, don't, because I'm going to do it
Both
tomorrow
of these
morning.
people will not have filed anything by the end of the day tomorrow.
I'm not taking that
Don't
bet
do it
because I'm
because
in agreement with you.
And I'm not
I
saying
just don't know what to file, even though you said a 388. Okay, I know that, but I don't know how to do it or what to say on it
right. That's why you got to talk to your lawyer.
that I don't have.
Right. Well, he said he was going to help you.
Well, I mean, I have to obviously contact him and see, but
Okay. When did you first ask me about this? Like weeks ago, months ago?
no, just like a couple weeks ago, actually. Remember, because Darren
What you
even
been,
said when I
what you
was
been doing? What you
talking
been
about
doing?
my case,
What
and
you
he's
been
like,
doing?
well, maybe you should talk about your case in like a friend type of manner so that you're not putting yourself out there now that everyone and billions of people can,
Okay. And what have you done in the last 2 weeks?
as far as what, filing anything?
Yeah.
I just found out yesterday for my kids that like the 2 month date, so to speak.
Okay.
And my mom's obviously trying to, not let me know anything about for obvious reasons, but
For years, I didn't know what the Nike slogan meant. For years, I
just
didn't really.
do it.
I didn't know, and it didn't make sense to me. But at the age of 65, I now know what "just do it" means.
Or your other slogan, aim first, fire first, aim, what is it? Aim first, fire, whatever you said to that one guy the other day.
Fire first, aim
There you
low.
go. There you go. Yeah.
Just
I
do
wonder
it.
if that guy's done anything for his kid. Remember, he was supposed to go file whatever he said. He kept bringing up, what was the word he kept bringing up? It was so funny because you even said it. Quit bringing this up. Not laws, but what was he saying? It would start with an H, I think. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway,
But just do it.
yeah.
As a matter of fact, that's rule number 8.
Yeah, there you go. Tonight's rules. And hey, you want to hear my speech?
Darren, can I ask you a question about
Sure.
your daughter, if that's okay? I
Yeah.
think I remember you saying, because I think I've been following your case from the very beginning, is when I first found Mr. Davis too. And correct me if I'm mistaken, but is your daughter with some kind of family? I know that you don't speak to, but
Yeah,
with
she's
family?
with. Yep. She's with a
So
cousin.
you have no way of still having any kind of contact with her though whatsoever?
They have nothing. Nothing's.
They don't want you guys to be a part of her life at all?
I don't know what took place.
Mm.
I don't know what happened. But we were best friends, and we turned out to be not. I guess it was crazy.
Let me tell you why. Do you know why? You probably don't even know why.
Because whatever the social worker said.
And money too.
The social worker went on a campaign to destroy you and probably your wife in the relatives' eyes.
Yep.
It's so bad that
she did a really good job.
She did. So for 50 years, my mother and my aunt, my aunt was married to my mother's brother. Been in the family for 50, 60 years. They don't even speak anymore. Every day they would talk to each other. Every day.
I haven't spoken to my mom since day one of my case.
No, I speak to my mom. My mom and Jan do not speak any longer. That's it. And here's
no, yeah, I'm saying though, I feel you in that instance.
You want to hear the funny part? She is the advocate for grandparents against child protective services in the state of Maine. So isn't there something funny here?
Well, yeah, my mom thinks that I'm just gone off the edge whenever I tell her things like they kidnap kids and, it's all about money and all this. And she's like, oh, you've really lost it now. But yet she's now the one that is literally wanting to keep my kids from me because of the money.
It's crazy.
But yeah, no, I haven't talked to my mom since day one of my case. So yeah, lost her too in the matter.
The family thing is, so delicate. Most of your detractors are going to be family members and friends.
Mhm.
not the guy on the street. The guy on the street doesn't even give a damn about you. But your
Right.
family and friends, they're gonna have their opinions.
Mhm.
And they're either gonna be with you or they're gonna be dead set against you.
Dead set.
Well, like the one yesterday, the grandparent yesterday,
That's some,
she did what every grandparent
go
should do.
ask
She
Jimmy
divorced that
how dead
boyfriend.
set they are. You know?
No, but the one yesterday, right, where she immediately divorced her husband because she was told that she wasn't going to get their grandkids. And then, she didn't talk to her daughter, even though she knew her daughter needed her, literally, like dying without her, all because she knew that she needed to save these grandkids. But look where she
No.
was left at the end of the day now, lost her daughter and her husband.
Yeah.
But I mean, she did get the
That's it.
grandkids, but
Hey Deidre,
that's because of her.
you asked me something, and I want to tell you.
Yeah.
You asked me, hey, do you remember my story? And here's the thing. Here's one of the reasons why it's difficult to remember the story belonging to Deidre Payne. Because I hear that story, 50 times a month from 50 different people from 50 different states.
Yeah.
All of the stories that I hear,
Are so
I
similar.
think there's about 10 to 12 basic stories that I hear, about CPS screwing up a family or screwing up on a case. There's only so many ways you can do this. And they're all the same story. And it's hard for me to. I say to
It's like
myself,
that one lady that came on recently and expected you to remember her case from like 10 years ago. You're like, wait, did you just say 10 years ago?
Here's the thing. Check this out. When we were at our
about 10
TPR,
days ago.
right?
Yeah.
Yesterday. What are you talking? Yesterday's pretty sorry, no. But listen, so there was a lady, and I know this is fact because there was a couple people at our hearing that were waiting in the hallway that heard this. So when we were at our TPR, the courtroom next to us was getting a TPR. Inside of that courtroom, this couple had intentionally thrown their baby down the stairs and had broken their skull. The couple then gave heroin to the baby, gave the baby hepatitis C, and the judge ordered not for TPR, but for more reunification.
Return home. Oh, wow.
Go ahead. And then in our courtroom next to that, where there's nothing whatsoever, where they put me on the trial of my life to later be dismissed by the state of Maine, they take my kids. Our situation had zero to do with our child. And in the courtroom next to us, where a child was directly affected, they had the A-team in there taking my rights away. And they had the people that were really deserving of losing a child walking out of there with 6 more months.
You know why? I can tell you why.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer too, but
you opened your mouth.
Right. Yep.
You dared talk against CPS.
Yep.
So they wanted to show you real quick. Exactly. Yeah.
Therefore, you are going to get the screws applied to you.
Yep. Facts. That are facts. But you know what?
That's why I tell people, you know what? After your thing is over, you should write a book. Because the more people that write a book and talk about the same issue, people are going to wake up and say, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this. There's something wrong with this.
Mine's coming.
You know what I see on the news, national news and local news all the time? All the time, stories about homelessness.
It's so bad, actually.
It's an important issue. Do you think it's more important than you losing your kids? So why do we hear about that? Why don't we hear more issues about the unfairness of CPS taking these kids and not placing them back with the parents or with the family?
I don't know why we don't hear more about it.
Exactly.
Because they don't let it be known because of the money, and then it would basically let it all out. Like this movie that just came out, that everyone's talking about.
The reason is because when you and I drive down the street, we see homelessness.
We see it, yeah.
We don't see
the actual, yeah.
You, as a parent that has been aggrieved, has to get out there.
Right.
Has to write the book. Has to do the movie. But you don't. So people will never know.
And you have to get these people to actually believe your story too, as sick as that sounds, you
Well,
know?
see, there's the other part. That's the other part, is that when immediately the stigma that is attached to someone that has lost their child is that you're a junkie, that
Or
you
they
must
took
be
your kids for some reason.
like you're an awful, terrible person. That's immediately right from the gate. You lost your kid.
Well,
Well,
that's
you
what I
just
would used
had
to think.
CPS involved. You're just a piece of poop, you know. And I only said that because of YouTube, but like that's it. Like the stigma thing is that's my biggest argument. Like my site, my abolishcps.com, like that's why I sell the clothing and stuff, because the stigma's got to change. People need to know that it's okay. Like we stand with you. We stand with you. Like we know that there's corruption, because there's a lot of people that just go sit there. Their kids get taken. They go sit in the back room of their house. They grab a bottle and they're dead in 6-8 months, and no one even knows, because you know what? People
Okay,
left
I have
those
a question,
people
Mr.
like
Davis, about your
terrible.
whole thing with us being captains and stuff and changing laws. Just to make it real simple in my mind, as far as getting the answer to my question, let's say down the road you have all the logistics set up as far as who's captain of this and everything like that, and it comes down to the time of changing a law or making a new law. How simple really is that? Do you just have to have so many people sign it, or how does that actually work, so to speak?
Well, it's different
Is
in
it just a
every
matter
state.
of signature?
It's different in every state. Here's what has been done, not by me, but what has been done by a woman advocate up in the Bay Area. She went out and got the required signatures. I think it was like 1 million. It's crazy. And that's hard to do, by the way. She got the required number of signatures to put something on the ballot.
Mm.
Okay. And once you get on the ballot, we have a what's called a proposition system in California. You can make laws by legislative actions, or you can put something on the ballot as a proposition and make it a law if it passes. So her thing was to get on the ballot and then have people vote. Okay? Have people vote.
So, like, we could
We,
like try and make a
we,
law to not let parents have their rights be terminated, so to speak.
right. You could what you the problem is that if you make that a law, the state will lose federal funding and more
So they'll never
taxpayers.
let it be
Right.
put on the ballot anyway.
No. More taxpayers will be basically saying, no, we don't want to lose federal funding. But you got to get a law like this. The parent is entitled to jury trial. Here's another law. When a social worker interviews the parent or child or any witness, they must be
Body
wearing a
cam.
body cam. 10 years ago, it was too expensive, right? Now technology has advanced. It's very inexpensive, and I don't know why they're not using it.
All the funding they get for our children,
Right. So,
but then it would show all their corruptness.
right. So you want to make sure they're using body cam. Here's another one. You can't terminate rights, unless you want to give them more defenses to terminating rights. You want to give them more defenses to terminating family unification services. You want to change the law in terms of not taking the child away at the beginning of the case, but making the parents do other services. So here's an example they used to do in Northern California 20 years ago. You had a drug baby, or you were using drugs. We wouldn't take your kid away from you. What we would do is make you test every week, and we would give you services to make sure that the child is safe. Because by definition, just because you tested positive for an illegal substance doesn't mean you can't take care of the kid. That doesn't
A
mean
lot of
that.
functioning. Hate to say it, but addicted parents out there.
Right. And by the way, there are many, many, many functioning addicts.
92% of drug users are functioning addicts that you would never even know are drug users.
Right. So
8% is the ones that you see with the.
You want to change laws like that or make different laws to protect parents, because right now parents are basically naked. They're at the whim and fancy of the CPS agent. There's a CPS agent. Could they have one case. Okay, just one case. CPS agent number A says ABC. CPS agent B says XYZ. You get two different, sometimes random acts in a case, depending on who the worker is. You want to try to give more guidance, give more protection. Like if here's something that I think I have a very strong belief about this. Let's say mother and father got in a fight, knockdown, drag out fight. Okay, but the kid wasn't there,
Yeah.
right? If I'm the judge, I say to the parents, look, I'll give you back the kid right at the beginning of the case if you guys live separately, right? And if you enroll in DV class, okay? And if I get evidence that you're doing this, okay, you keep the kid. If I get evidence you're not doing it, I'm taking the kid automatically. Now that's enough to scare most parents, okay?
Right.
But for some reason, we do the exact opposite in court.
Yeah.
Mom and dad have a knockdown, drag out fight. Kid wasn't there. We take the kid away from them. Then, which we never hear about, kids going crazy in the foster home because for the first time he or she was out their parents. Can you imagine being a 5-year-old without your parents? Like
My
you just,
kids are still traumatized from where they were put the first
you know,
day. They
you
call
tell
it.
your kid never, don't talk
Go
to
with strangers.
and here you are, you find yourself in a
Yeah.
freaking foster
And
home
then
with
and then
some
what
lady.
cracks me up is that now we got to take some time to reunite you with your child. We can't just remove your child from. Are you kidding me? You could come and take her out of my house for no reason, instantly, under police force and all this hoot nanny. And now because I want my kid back, you're gonna say, well, let's take some time to reintroduce. Let's just drag out that funding just a hair more. Hey, what is emotion to control?
Emotion to control.
Yeah, to force you to go to court, I guess.
We don't have that here.
Now, a lady had asked me a question about that. I meant to ask you about that. She said that she won't talk to CPS. So they said that they will force her to talk to CPS. And now she's got a motion to control, is what she calls it. She's from Indiana.
Yeah, she's not from California because that
So
would almost
so does
be
California have? What does California have? Can they force you to talk to CPS?
no. But here's the problem: first of all, they can force you to do services by saying, do the services or you're not getting your kid.
Right.
I have seen the rare occasion where people have said, F you, I'm not doing the services, keep the kid.
Right.
Oh.
Okay.
We saw that a couple weeks ago.
But in my opinion, no social worker, you cannot be forced to talk to the social worker. And what I tell people is, don't talk to the social worker unless I'm present or on the phone.
Right.
Social workers hate that because they know that I'm not going to let the client be suckered into making wrong
manipulation.
Statements. Yeah. So in California, I don't know about Indiana, they can't make you talk to the social worker alone. Period. End of story. And I've even told judges on the occasional case, somebody says to me, well, Mr. Davis, your client didn't talk to the social worker. My response is, you know what, Judge, that's right. She didn't. And she doesn't have the burden of proof. So her not talking to the social worker, how does that equate to child abuse or risk of child abuse?
Right.
Nobody wants to answer that question. You don't have to help the social worker prove the case against you.
Yeah.
Well, it's supposed to be non-adversarial system, Mr. Davis. Really? You took my client's kid and it's non-adversarial? You won't let my client visit and that's non-adversarial?
Yeah.
You know what, Judge? I just should just leave. Here's my client. Do whatever you want with her.
Right.
Basically.
She has no rights. That's basically what you're telling me.
Oh, here's the other one. This is one more I got for you, kind of on a glimpse. So here in Maine, if my wife and I got into a fight when we had the baby, or for instance, our oldest daughter, who's right here, right next to me, we get into a fight. One of us want to take the daughter with us. One of us calls the police. The police show up at the house, right? say, well, Darren's taking the kid, and she can't take the kid because I want the kid, or so on and so forth. The cops are going to say, what? This is a civil matter. We can't be involved in this, right? That's pretty much what they typically say.
It depends on the cop. Depends on the cop.
So, well, I know for here in Maine, I've seen it in firsthand and such that's what would be the argument that they would lay with you, that the custody thing is not their dealings. That's whatever. But why, when CPS is involved, can police play a role in obtaining the custody of a child? Now, I know that they're not supposed to be, and I know that it's supposed to be intimidation.
They can flex their muscle. That's why.
So does that mean if you went hypothetically to where your child was and said, hey, I'm here to collect my child, and if the police came, that they would have to say, this is not my issue, you're going to have to take this to court?
No.
Well, not if there was a warrant for them to be able to remove him. CPS
not if there was a court order placing the kid
out of their care.
Out of their care.
Well, I'm just saying that
Darren, you're trying to use logic. Come on now,
I know. By me to use logic in this whole law thing that's supposed to protect our rights and everything.
Justice is not the same.
It's just
the whiteboard, the video with him in the whiteboard.
What is justice?
It's not the same as we think it is.
Whatever they want it to be.
Is justice what you thought it was, Deirdre?
Not in CPS. No, not whatsoever.
Not even
close. Nope.
Yeah. Hey, you
guys, when you're having fun, time goes by really fast.
Yeah,
we're coming to the end of the show.
I didn't even get to give you my speech, and you should. It's 3 minutes and 11 seconds long.
It's 3 minutes.
I think you're laughing. You know what? I bet you $1. I bet you $1 right now, Mr. Davis. That you are blindsided by what I wrote.
Okay, well, read it. Let him read it.
Okay.
End it with your speech.
Yes.
The pressure's on. I heard your cheerleader in the background. Is that your daughter?
Yeah. All right, hold on.
Make it good.
Oh, it's I've got I don't know, 1,200.
I used to listen to all your podcasts too, Darren.
Did you?
You used to crack me up sometimes. In the very beginning of your case, man, I was rolling sometimes in the car listening to you. Oh, right, man.
Ready? All right. Oh, let me get to the top of it here. It's long, and I missed some space here, but here we go. This isn't like the sound system. All right.
I have too many computer screens.
I know, right? Oh, yeah, there it is. There she is. If I could reach over and do it with 2 hands right now, I'd have the ticker for the crickets, right? I'm almost at the top. Hold on. All right. So, there it is. All right, here we go. So this is what I came up with so far. It says, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Americans, today I stand before you with a critical message about the state of our nation's child protective services and why we must take urgent action to abolish it. Our children, the very heart and soul of this great nation, are suffering under the oppressive weight of a system that was meant to protect them, but has strayed far from its noble purpose. The time has come to put an end to the business-driven approach of child protective services and restore true justice and compassion for our families. As president of the Vincent Davis Committee there, I just have the blank. I promise you that we will no longer tolerate the blatant exploitation of our children. The current CPS system has turned into a money-making machine where the well-being of our young ones has been replaced by financial incentives and greed. This must end now. It is a sad reality that our children, the most vulnerable members of society, are falling victim to the dark web of human trafficking and child exploitation. Instead of sheltering them from harm, CPS has been allowing these evils to fester, turning a blind eye to the very horrors they were meant to prevent. We must dismantle this broken system to pave the way for genuine protection and support for our children. American families, the cornerstone of our nation, are being torn apart by the merciless tactics of CPS. Their heavy-handed approach, reminiscent of a Gestapo, crushes the fundamental values we hold dear: freedom, privacy, and the integrity of that family unit. I assure you that under my watch, we will rebuild this system to ensure that families are treated with respect and dignity and the rights are upheld. The current state of CPS has left countless innocent families devastated, their lives shattered by baseless accusations and stripping away of their parental rights. It is an outrage and a gross injustice. We cannot allow a system that operates without transparency, accountability, and fairness to continue in our great nation. Think about the children who are taken away from loving homes, subjected to unimaginable trauma, placed into an uncaring bureaucracy. It is heartbreaking, and we cannot let this continue any longer. We must rebuild a child protective system that genuinely focuses on the welfare of children, not on profits or quotas. I am deeply upset by the distress this system has caused to innocent children and families alike. It's a stain on the fabric of our society. Together, we will wipe it clean. We will advocate for change and put an end to this unjust practice. Let us stand united to abolish this corrupt system and replace it with one that protects our children, empowers our families, upholds the values that have made America strong. Together, we will forge a brighter future, one where our children can flourish, our families can thrive without the fear of a misguided system destroying their lives. May God bless our children. May God bless our families. May God bless the United States of America.
That was good.
Okay, hold on. Okay, you can just drop the mic now.
I was waiting for a sound effect.
I'll be getting my dollar soon.
We're gonna make that a YouTube short.
Right.
Oh, look at you now.
Ooh, I moved up.
Okay,
Ooh,
folks,
Darren.
we're way past our ended time. Thank you, Mr. Guai, and thank you, Ms. Payne.
Yes, sir.
And we'll see everyone tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And everyone have a good Sunday. Bye-bye.
Bye.